Hello everybody, it is Jim here. Today we're going to be talking about Bacchus Guitars. There's not a whole ton of information in English available about these fine instruments that have been made since the early 1990s, so we'll do a brief overview of the history as well as their slight hiatus and change in philosophy towards their manufacturing and where they are today, some of the different model lines that are available and how you could tell where it's made based on the designations in the title themselves. In 1977, the now recently departed Yasuo Momose began a company called Headway Guitars. They only built acoustic instruments. However, in the late 1980s, they really thought to themselves, maybe we should be able to enter the electric guitar market, and in 1991, they did with Bacchus Guitars. These guitars that were initially made were really vintage style based on Fender and Gibson designs. They were extremely popular and they had a few things that really separated them from a lot of the rest of the pack and competition. The first being, to this day, if you buy a guitar that is made in the Asuka factory in Nagano, Japan, whether it is a Bacchus, whether it is a 77, or whether it is a Momose electrical instrument, there is no CNC whatsoever. It is all done by hand the old school way. And the second thing that was pretty cool about these guitars was the components were actually made in-house. So the pickups were wound and made by them, and a lot of the times the people will make all of the body and the wood themselves and shaping, but then they'll outsource all the electrical components. So it was pretty different for Momose and the crew to do that with the Bacchus line of instruments. In 2005, they stopped making all of the vintage kind of reissue things exactly to spec, and they started going in a different direction. A few years prior to that, in 2002, they launched the brand Momose, and the transition kind of began to where these Bacchus guitars became slightly more modern, and as you can see by this one, the spirit still lives on with that, with classic styling as the base point, and anything that was meant to be a little bit more vintage correct was going to be in the Momose line of guitars. So right now, if you were to look up Bacchus Guitars, you would see quite a few different models, and sometimes the names could be pretty confusing. You have the Universe series. This is the lowest tier of Bacchus. These are made in China with a lot of budget parts on them, albeit they do have stricter quality control that they have to go through in order to make it to the public. The next step above that is going to be the Global series. The Global series guitars are made in Indonesia now, not unlike many other brands such as Paul Reed Smith, Fender, Sterling by Music Man, etc., etc. One of the biggest differences outside of them being an Indonesian guitar and not just not made in China was those come with upgraded other components such as Wilkinson bridges, upgraded hardware as far as the tuning pegs themselves, and slightly different pickups on top of that. And then you had this series of guitars called the Craft series. The Craft series is actually the entry level of the fully made in Japan instruments by Bacchus. This has an oil finish on an ash body. It's got in-house made Bacchus pickups on it. It's got a Richlite fingerboard, matching headstock, and the most incredible feeling modern neck. Last but most certainly not least, there was one other line of production guitars above even this one called the Handmade series. Unfortunately, those are also no longer in production at the time of filming this in May of 2024, leaving us with only the import models of the Bacchus guitars available. Now, that's not to say that they're not going to bring them back, or they could potentially be doing a refresh of the lines with kind of updated pricing, because when you look at the prices of the Indonesian guitars right now from Bacchus compared to the Craft series as well as the Handmade series, there wasn't a whole lot of difference, considering the fact that one is completely handmade, quite frankly handmade in Nagano, Japan, and the others are mass produced in Indonesia. I think this is a good time, though, if you are on the used market, to get one of these Japanese made, whether it's one of the vintage series from the early years or one of the craft or handmade series rather, of the modern era. You can find them for under $1,000, and even if you have to spend slightly more than that, it is going to be well worth it. These are extraordinary instruments, and they're so good, in fact, that when you do get one for the first time, you might find yourself shocked as the same way that I was the first time I played a Momose, the MJG Jaguar style instrument, and you look at what we have available here in the United States and think to yourself, wow, maybe we're getting kind of ripped off here, taken advantage of for our money, but they really are that good. And I highly encourage you, if you do ever get the opportunity, slim as it may be, to try one of the Japanese made guitars from Bacchus or Momose or 77 in person, that you make good use of it, because you might be extremely surprised, and also your wallet might be very happy as well, because they don't maintain the same value compared to a brand like Gibson or Fender, depending on the model that you're comparing it to. I tried to make today's video a little bit shorter and a little bit more to the point. I didn't go deep into depth on every single model, but what I am going to do is I'm going to leave a link in the description. It's going to be to Bacchus's website, and you'll even be able to see all the discontinued guitars as well as all their specs and their original cost, so that when you are shopping around on the used market, you'll know exactly what you're looking at, and it makes things a little bit easier to be more informed on these purchases, and you can buy with confidence at that point. Because unfortunately, I have seen people, not just with this brand, but also even with Tokai and Bernie, they buy guitars thinking that they're fully made in Japan, and it's not the case. And it's a really kind of unfortunate thing, because not only are they spending a bit of money on something that is not initially what they thought it was, but the quality is not the same. It's just not, as when you're getting one of these handmade Japanese instruments. Thank you for watching today. If you have any other questions or ideas or comments regarding these guitars or any Japanese instruments that you'd like to see me go over a specific brand, let me know in the comment section down below. I do value your time, so it does mean a lot to me that you clicked this video. Hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and right now, I'm going to try and play us out a little bit. Take care, everybody. Thank you.